You know when the actual thing in itself is completely fine, but the kind of the attitude around it is really like people, it's become like a oh yummy mummy self-care kind of situation that people then associate self-care with that attitude rather than the actual thing it is.
So in this film, we're going to be looking at looking after yourself, so self-care, and what that looks like for you and the work that you're doing at StreetDoctors.
It's really important for you as a StreetDoctors volunteer to be looking after sort of your mental and physical health, because this is going to tie into how you are in sessions teaching young people, but also into your future as a healthcare practitioner. Taking steps to look after your mental health allows you to be the best person you can be when teaching, when working in a healthcare scenario.
So if you don't have an outlet, then similar to those children going through those traumatic experiences, you're building it up and you're not saying anything. And don't think because you're a professional that you're any different to the individuals that are engaging in these behaviours or being victims of these types of behaviours. It's important to understand that you need to keep yourself safe and good first.
Volunteers who are part of StreetDoctors community, they're full-time healthcare student, or you've maybe just recently qualified. So that role as a student or as an employee of the NHS, it's really busy and stressful, and we work in pressured environments. And so, you know, the NHS is a really long career to be in, and knowing what works for you at this stage in your training and as part of volunteering with StreetDoctors hopefully mean that you have a long and healthy career.
Please make sure you look after yourselves, and in any way that makes you feel good. You need to release yourself from the trauma that you might have picked up from others, and also the trauma you might have felt from hearing and seeing some very difficult things around the subject of youth violence.
Looking after your mental health is just as important as looking after your physical health, especially when we're working with young people who have experienced lots of trauma. When we're talking about youth violence, when we're working day in, day out with people who are unwell or who are really struggling with their own emotional responses to things, it is essential that we stay well and regulated and safe within ourselves. So that includes our mental health. We have to find ways of being able to feel okay even when things around us aren't okay. The nervous system needs to have lots and lots of examples of being under stress and being able to cope with it. So being able to go into a space of relaxation or safety. That flexibility is really important for us to know that we can manage. Otherwise, we get overwhelmed and we get stuck in really extreme emotional responses sometimes. Being self-regulated, looking after ourselves, taking care of our own mental health is part of being trauma-informed. If we're not okay, then they're not okay.
The most stressful point in my career so far was about my 5th year after qualification. So I was working as a registrar. I was working with quite a lot of responsibility, but maybe not yet senior enough to handle that level of responsibility. So the pressure that I felt was intense, and my level of burnout at that stage was extreme. I found that there was periods where destructive behaviours might step in. I always have a constant level, like a background level of anxiety, but I would say those 2 years, it was at its highest. I now feel, if I'm looking back, I don't necessarily think it was my fault. I think I was put under a lot of pressure. At the time, I wish I had said something. I wish I'd spoken out about it. I felt the only people that would listen were not the actual people that were involved in supervising me at the time. I felt that they were not supportive, they were not on my side. I didn't feel that I could talk to those people. And then that made me push them away further, and I found myself feeling more isolated as a result of that. It is accompanied by a feeling of not being the most confident doctor, not being the most competent doctor. And for me, one of the biggest things that is good about my job is connection and connecting with people. So how I relate to people, my attitude, my behaviour, how I come across, I lose that if I'm in a stage where I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling burnt out.
You'll find that if you don't take care of yourself and take steps to make sure that you're mentally sound, the situations that you may encounter that you may normally be able to handle become far harder to handle. Something that is something such as a small argument or a heated debate, if you are more stressed out, you will find that harder to deal with than if you've got a sound state of mind, if you've got techniques to make sure you're looking after yourself. And also, the energy that you bring into sessions, the energy that you bring into your work as a healthcare practitioner is almost a reflection of what's going on inside you at times. If you come to a session to teach, or you come to a healthcare scenario to do your work, and inside you're ridiculously stressed, inside you're a little bit anguished or sad, sometimes that can emanate into the session, and you can find that people can pick up on that. So it becomes a less productive teaching environment or working environment from both you and the patient.
I feel like in all other areas of work other than healthcare, it's become a thing. And in healthcare, we're still kind of behind, even though it's so confusing. It's like we're helping other people, but we're not really helping ourselves.
Inherently, we're judged, maybe not judged, but we're expected to be perfect, empathetic to everybody, and nobody teaches you, as you say, nobody teaches us to be empathetic to ourselves and just sit down and forget everybody else for now, just for a second, and focus on myself. And I think that's what's missing. So we just need to reshape that conversation, perhaps.
And everyone has physical health problems. Why is it that we think that people can't have mental health problems? We all have both. Therefore, we should be taking care of both. Equally, yeah.
So much like looking after your physical health, your mental health needs to be taken care of. It's not just something that we have, it's something that we have to nurture. So much like when we go to the gym, we notice improvements when we keep doing things. It's the same for our mental health.
Personally, I play hockey, so I find that my go-to venting strategy. I feel like I talk to my friends a lot. Yeah, I feel like sports and being able to talk to people are my go-to, yeah.
So with my friends, we all have quite a weird sense of humour, and luckily we sort of bounce off each other and we laugh at stuff that other people probably wouldn't find funny, but we cackle hilariously about it.
One of the things I really enjoy is actually baking. First of all, it makes all your friends happy because at the end of the day they get to get a free treat, and then at the same time, whilst I'm actually following the recipe, I can put all the stress whilst whisking it thoroughly and then mixing different ingredients, and at the end it's a happy result and everyone just happy around you.
I won't lie, every once in a while I need to have a good cry, and if that's crying by watching a film or reading a book, then I will. Because at least with the cry, I can get out my frustrations, my anger.
So I like to travel. It's a bit easier now that I've got a little bit more cash to do that. I like to travel around. I used to be around the country, going mountain climbing and doing walks, but now going around Europe. That's sort of my way to get away from everything.
So what I do to look after myself is I jog. So I have to jog every single day. I'm absolutely addicted to it. If I don't, I feel either very lethargic or very agitated. But I also do some gardening as well, because gardening is about the earth and about growing, and it's nurturing. So it's not my own garden, it's a community garden. I couldn't manage with my own garden.
Just listening to an album and enjoying an artist that I really like, or discovering something new, has been a great way of sort of giving myself me time essentially.
Taking a long bath, and or cooking or baking something nice, you know. Those are the kinds of things. And increasingly I'm trying to improve the amount of time I spend just practicing breathing exercises, or even engaging in meditation, which for me is tricky to sit still sometimes.
I like to swim, and I do cold water swimming, so swimming outdoors. The cold water really works well with my nervous system, so it gives me a bit of a jolt, and then it allows me to feel nice and settled and safe.
I love noise cancelling headphones. They are my favourite thing because they physically block out that stimulus.
I draw as well, so since the new year I've been trying to do that every day actually, but hasn't always happened.
So one of the other things I do with my friends is that when we meet up for food or we go out on the weekend, the rule is we're not going to talk about work. If somebody talks about work, you're paying for the bill.